And I think so many people don't get married because they want to be perfect at being a person.
That's good. Right.
Versus being perfect at the process.
That's right.
Well,
continuing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
That's so
keep
good.
living, bro.
yeah, because I think when I view marriage and when I view I always bring up fitness, but a lot of times you won't be perfect at eating right all the time.
Oh, that's good.
Making all the right choices. But if you're perfect at the process of trying, you will always reach your result.
That's right.
So how can someone that is wrestling with that that maybe has the soulmate that God has for them, but they're afraid to take it to the next level because they're afraid of their past or their family that they're connected to ruining that.
Wow. Well, one thing we always teach in our premarital classes is communication.
Yeah.
That's the big deal. Learning how to be open and honest with one another. And of course, your relationship with God has a lot to do with what you're able to receive from another person. So that communication piece is really, really huge. Can you share your heart with this individual? Can you really be who you believe you are?
Yeah.
Can they accept you just like you are without the bells and the whistles? So if you're afraid to take that next step, somewhere on the inside of you, you don't know if you're going to be accepted for who you are right now. We make these excuses. Well, when I get the house and when I get the bank account, when I get the status, when that's part of the growth process. That's what makes marriage fun, is when you're able to grow into some of these things together.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a fear in whether or not I can live up to. So we have to get rid of those things, and that's where the faith component comes in. We dwell with one another by faith. I trust God that you can handle who I am. I trust God that I can handle who you are. You understand? And I'm not going to put you on this pedestal and not allow you to evolve and become who God has called you to be. Right. So some of that fear is just in that facade that we have about who we have to be, that perfect husband, that perfect wife. We do selfies and stuff now. Everything is picture perfect. Marriage is not picture perfect,
No, it's not.
It's messy. It's a messy bed. Who's going to make up the bed?
Yeah.
Who's going to vacuum the floor?
Who's going to wash the clothes?
There's a whole conglomeration of things there. But that faith component and that relationship with God is the binding agents.
Yeah, because God can give you wisdom on how to deal with one another.
Come on.
That's right.
And I believe that, being married and then being a child that was in part of a dysfunctional marriage, you kind of see where some people make their own choices, where they kind of, you can tell God was trying to show them or teach them something, but they make their own choices and they make a mess.
So
and then I believe some people come into a marriage hurt.
That's right.
Like if you look at that doorway, it's only so wide.
Come on.
So when we had to bring these bags in, sometimes I had to bring them in one at a time.
Yeah.
Some people show up to the marriage with 10 duffel bags.
That's
Absolutely.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think when you try to operate in a small room or a confined space with bags, you end up knocking things over.
Come on.
Someone tries to help, then they fall.
Yeah.
So how can someone empower their spouse who has been through troubled past? Because sometimes you may be married to, say, Mary or Stephen, but you're treating them like Joe and Sally.
Come on.
Absolutely.
Come on.
Absolutely.
And I'll let you go into that a little bit, but I'll say that has to do with your individual walk with God as well, to where you become the person that another person can trust with their stuff.
Right.
You become the person. You perfect the art of listening.
Yeah.
Okay, because sometimes people just need you not to diagnose. Not to dissect, to do surgery, but to just listen. So if you can be that safe space, that safe place to just hear them out so that they can unload, not necessarily, rant, and vent, but to unload so that you can help them unpack. So as you work on yourself as an individual, you allow yourself, that space to unpack their life, and you walk them through that. If you're at a better place in that area, you help walk them through that. That's part of the marriage journey.
And you know what? I think one of the things we learned as we began to grow together and evolve, we found out that your struggle was not your struggle alone. Number one, when we came together, we became one. And so now whatever your problem is my problem.
That's right.
And I know what the things that I went through.
That takes out the pointing fingers and
Right. And when I was going through some of my greatest struggles, and maybe we'll talk about that today, or I'll come back and talk about it. But I felt like I was all alone at one point. I felt like it was so embarrassing. It was too deep to talk about, and I was ashamed. I was ashamed of my past, ashamed of some of the things that were beyond my control, as well as some things that I decided to do. And when she started discovering some of those things, it made me even more shameful and embarrassed about it. And I began to become even more, watch this, secretive. When it was, and I'll give you one of them, for instance, pornography was a big problem for me. And I became so secretive to the point to where I didn't want her to find anything. But amazingly, with God in the picture, she finds out everything, And so, and that brought more hurt and more pain and more embarrassment and more shame. And number one, and you may have heard me say it, and I've said it to when we preach and when we go all over, and I'm talking about Jackie. She showed me God, and we know, number one, God is love. And so in the midst of it, she showed me I wasn't alone. I wasn't by myself. And when we stopped the pointing fingers, well, if you would do this, and if you didn't do that, and you're supposed to be a man of God, and well, you're supposed to be a woman of God. You kind of go through the back and forth, and you're not really resolving the issues and communicating on a productive level. When you stop that, and when I'll never forget it, maybe you'll tell that part of it, when she began to take on, hey, I've been treating you like this is your problem alone. But no, wait a minute, this is our problem. And we're going to work on it together. And she discovered that through the story of Abigail and Nabal. Nabal was, of course, foolish. But Abigail had enough wisdom to say, when she laid before David, you know what? Let the sin of my husband, of the foolishness of Nabal be upon me, and preserve my whole house, And because of that, that one move she made, she preserved her whole house from destruction. And so that's what we began to come into agreement about, and we began to work on. And that's when I was able to be open and honest and get my freedom.